There is nothing that forwards and Omega Strikers fear more than a bad goalie. Look, we're not expecting solo queue goalies to be Martin Brodeur, but giving your team some confidence that you aren't going to be a glorified in-game turnstile can make a big difference in their mindsets and how they operate. Today we look at 9 mistakes that only beginner goalies make, with number 8 being a mistake that people don't even realize is a mistake yet. Welcome back to OSN. Let's start off with mistake number 1. They pass the core right back at the enemy instead of redirecting or clearing it. When an enemy is right on top of them, a lot of times beginner goalies pass the ball right back at the enemy forward, and then the forward shoots another shot right back at them. Instead, goalies should aim where they hit the ball and redirect it either away from the forwards, passing to a teammate, or even going directly up or down in order to buy time for their next ability or another strike. Mistake number 2 is that they let in a lot of soft goals. If both the enemy forwards are just dogpiling on you in your goal, and even the enemy Luna is using her jump right on top of you, then no one is expecting you to clear the core out of there. There's no reason for a teammate to be upset at you for allowing in that goal. However, when the core is moving at about the same speed as a line at the DMV, and yet it goes right past you and into your goal, then that is a major letdown. This is especially frustrating if your team just killed 1 or 2 players on the other team and you are just about to have a power play opportunity. The way to avoid this mistake is just pay attention the entire time and always mind your positioning. Those are core goalie fundamentals that you just have to pay attention to all the time. Mistake number 3 is that they mirror the core. Core goes up, goalie goes up. Core goes down, goalie goes down. This sounds like this wouldn't be a bad thing, except if the core is not even on your side of the court, the enemy team could get a cheeky goal with a well-placed heavy hit on the core to the opposite side of you, which leads me to my next point. All the beginner goalies right now do not anticipate ricochets. Being able to anticipate where the core is going after it hits a wall or is hit by an ability is an important skill to possess in Omega Strikers, but it is even more crucial for goalies to master. Always be thinking about where the core could be heading with each apparent ricochet. You could easily miss your opportunity to clear the core out of your side, and that puts more pressure on yourself to have to deal with more shots on your goal that could score. For this mistake and the previous mistake, my advice is to think ahead and also try to stay more towards the center of your goal unless you have an ability that can cover the side you're not on. The next mistake is leaving the goal. Leaving the goal should be done exceedingly sparingly in Omega Strikers as a goalie, because what's your position? You are the goalie. Do I really need to explain this one? Let's say you leave your goal 10 times in order to help your team score, but in even one of those instances you let in a soft goal. That is just simply not worth it unless you are on like a 3-on-1 power play. Just stay in your goal, it's very rare that you leave it, and just keep that in mind as you are playing. Mistake number 6 is a lot of goalies hold on to their abilities for too long. I have lost count of how many times I've seen a Dubu get scored on when I never saw him use his dash or Tofu Fortress. They just assumed they could hit the core and didn't need to use an ability. The core then goes past them, they panic, and then they try to use an ability, but it's already too late. When you're still learning, it's best to be safe rather than sorry, especially if you're facing a goal-scoring forward such as Estelle. You always have to use abilities, if not they're just going to deflect it right in after you hit it. The 7th mistake that beginner goalies make is that they let themselves get bullied. If you're getting constantly harassed by an enemy sitting in your goal, you can't just let them have their way. You do have defensive bonuses in your goaltending area after all. No one is expecting you to solo kill them, but don't let their stagger meter remain untouched or they have no reason to stop doing what they're doing. I know most goalies want to use their abilities to assist with their duties as a goalie, but sometimes you gotta apply a little pressure back or you'll die for free. Now we're on to the mistake that a lot of goalies don't even realize is a mistake. And that mistake is they never stand still. This game is very fast paced, but as I mentioned earlier, anticipation is the name of the game. Sometimes it's a good idea to just sit in the middle area of your goal and take in as many factors as you can in order to determine your next play. If you need to go up, you can, and if you need to go down, you can as well. Let's compare that to a situation when you're up top, but then all of a sudden you need to move bottom. If you don't have a projectile or ranged ability, you're going to get there too late. You don't always have to be doing something, so sometimes you can just relax and stay in the middle of the goal. The last mistake I want to point out for beginner goalies is that they never strike second. Forwards and goalies are in a constant chess match with one another. One of the most important of these matches is essentially a staring contest, and you do not want to blink first. You need to be patient as a goalie when you are coming up on the core to make a save and an opposing forward is closing in on the core and trying to score. strike first and they strike second, and then all of a sudden your strike is on cooldown and then the enemy scores. If the enemy strikes first and you strike second, the core is cleared out. You cannot gain rating as a goalie if you consistently lose this staring contest. Other things you can do when you're in this daunting situation is just use an ability. Sometimes you could even use your ultimate as well if you have it on cooldown. There's always something that can be done. Maybe you could refer to tip number 1 and deflect it in a different direction so that you don't even have to play that staring contest. So let me know which mistakes frustrate you all the most. For me, it's about leaving the goal. Because remember, after all, you are the goalie. If you enjoyed trash talking goalies, don't forget that you can't dish it out if you can't take it, so click this pop-up to see mistakes that forwards make that are just as bad.